us in prayer this morning. How we doing? How's everyone?
Yay!
Met Ty this morning. Anybody else new? Bart, the spark. Yeah, you're new. All right, let's kind of. Father God, we come before you this morning grateful for breath, grateful for creativity, and just grateful to be able to walk in this world with you by our side. We pray for power this morning to touch each of us. We pray for Anton as he presents something very difficult to wrap our arms around, and just ask that you would lead us through this day. We pray in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
And Anton does not need an introduction, but he is going to talk about Horizon Machines and address AI.
My goal today is to give you guys a little basic foundation on artificial intelligence, AI. Obviously, it's like the buzzword. You hear it everywhere, you look everywhere. Oh, AI here, AI there. It's all over. But just hearing that, people don't necessarily know what it means. We've seen a lot of science fiction movies over the years. I mean, Terminator and things like that. So you hear AI, and wait a minute, Skynet? Are they going to? What do we do? So the Matrix, there's all types of stuff. But let me demystify things a little bit here and try to get this basic foundation for you here. So there's our good friend R2D2, which when you think of it, it actually was a form of AI. When George Lucas came up with all that stuff. So what are we going to cover today? Our main point. So what is AI just in general? So you have a textbook definition of it. AI terms that you should know. There's a lot of them out there. I'm not going to go through the encyclopedia of AI terminology. Just a few of the major ones. The history of ChatGPT. I know for a fact you guys have heard of ChatGPT. That is usually the primary one that people hear about when they talk about AI these days, because it was, I don't say the pioneer, but it was one that really went viral. Everybody's using it now. So give it just a little walk through memory lane on that. And then some top GPT prompts. If I have enough time, I'm going to try to show you one in action. The prompts are what you type into the system to get a response. So whatever you're doing, you need to prompt it with something, ask it a question, give it an instruction, and then you'll get a response. So Warren GPT. This is the evil twin brother to ChatGPT, and we'll go into that a little bit. Just to want to make you guys aware of what's going on out there. And predictions from the past. That's a cute little video. It's only about a minute long, so I'm going to try to jam through things so we have just enough time to play that before we're out here. So, what is AI? The $1 million question. So, I'm going to try to contextualize it. So this will help you kind of get a firmer understanding of it. So, if you imagine you have a robot friend who can learn and think just the way you do, that's what artificial intelligence really is all about. So AI is essentially the technology that allows machines, robots, code, computers, what have you, computer programs to do tasks that usually require human intelligence. So it's like giving a computer human brain power. And I know that sounds weird, right? But a computer smarter than a human? Not necessarily. Now there are different types of AI. So there's not just one central ubiquitous AI. There are a lot of different types of AI out there. And then there are composites. So you get a central AI that is built up of many different other AI components. So some are curious, like a little child who learns from experience, and we call that machine learning. So it will adapt and learn over time. And there is a machine learning aspect to ChatGPT and a lot of other AIs out there. So despite whatever they originally are, there's always this because it allows them to get better over time. But machine learning, that's a term that you should know. Others are more like a clever friend who can follow specific rules and instructions and then make decisions based on them. And that's called rule-based AI. And again, that is a dimension to things like ChatGPT. So you'll notice that it follows instructions and it learns over time. Right. So it is an AI, but it's made up of other So some AI terms that you should know. I mentioned a couple in there, machine learning and role-based AI, but let me give you a couple others. So conversational AI, the term kind of tells you what it is, but just so you know specifically. So conversational AI is the synthetic brain power that makes machines capable of understanding, processing, and responding to human language. Now, when we say human language, obviously we speak and we type things differently than what a computer normally interacts with, right? This is what makes search engine optimization such an interesting mix of things, because we do a lot of, well, we, in society in general, people are doing a lot of voice searching. So again, you speak differently than the way you type. So if you get on your phone, you're like, hey, Google, and you query it with something, you're probably going to say that differently than if you're on your typing. But it still needs to understand it from both, ways. So this is, conversational AI helps to kind of break that down and get, a response based on how you're typing and talking, knowing that the human language is very rich, and it evolves over time. So think of conversational AI as the brain, so to speak, that powers a virtual agent or a chatbot. So you guys have probably encountered this, whether you do it or not. These bots that are responding to you if you want to like a live chat for a website, customer service, ordering stuff. This has actually happened. It's happened a couple of years back where I think it was Domino's Pizza, maybe. Somebody was online through the chat, thinking they were dealing with a person, and they had asked it some things. And there was some point near the end of the conversation where they asked it something. I don't recall exactly what it was, but the response was very just like weird. It was just like, what? Like, how you are? What? And it's because the chat bot at that point was a later iteration where that language model had evolved, and it was giving a robotic response based off of what it was typing. Now, part of that comes from the language of what's being typed. The way that the AI kind of processes this is it says it has a huge database of information that tells it that when somebody puts one word up, there's a string of possible words that come after it. So based on the pattern that somebody is typing in, you should understand that, oh, this word followed by this word and this word means that you should give it this response, because it's just a pattern of words. And that's what the AI is really looking at. It's looking at a pattern of what you're typing. So based on that pattern, it came up with a response, but it was completely asinine response based on what the person was actually asking. It was like, what are you talking about there? And it kind of went viral, this little news story about it and everything. But this is where that conversational AI really kicks in. And again, it's getting much better now. And will give you more of a human-like response. But this is what a lot of companies are using now. And you guys as business owners need to definitely be aware of the tools are that you can implement them. Yes, sir. Yeah, step up to the mic. Yeah, we got the town hall thing going on again. If you guys have a question, step up to the mic. Yes, sir.
So quick question.
Sure.
Obviously I know what AI is, but do you think AI is going to ever take over the human aspect of it? Because if it breaks down, you can't have an AI fixing AI.
Do I think that AI will like replace people? It's a good kind of philosophical question. Yes and no. And I know that's probably not the response you're looking for. Yes, in that AI is really designed to replace people in that it's allowing there to be less manpower devoted to the drudgery and allow you to transition into higher level thinking and higher level tasks. So it's not necessarily going to replace people much. In an example of replacing people, like we just talked about with chat agents, right? Like you've got a live chat interaction on a website, get on there, you're talking, you're typing, and there's an agent that responds, and you're assuming that's a person. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. It really kind of depends. But if it's not, you're like, oh, see, the AI is taking people's jobs. It's replacing people. Yes and no. The cost and the drudgery of implementing basically a person who's just answering somebody's questions that can be pat responses. And you've probably seen this, where you're engaging with a live chat, and sometimes you get this like, oh, they obviously copy and pasted something. And they did something like, oh, here's some links, you can go to our tutorials. You're like, dude, like a person didn't have to do that. Like we're paying somebody X number of dollars an hour to copy and paste a pat response to somebody that's like, oh, we could just create an AI chatbot for that. Right. And now you are freeing up your manpower to go do higher level tasks because there's tier one customer support, tech support, right? Then there's usually like a tier two, higher level. Okay, similar content, even with Vistaprint, you know, and companies like that. First level customer support might be offshore. When like you got a bigger problem or it needs a little, they transfer you back to that US space station. So it's kind of a similar tier of it. So will AI replace people? Not necessarily in the way that you think, but it is designed to kind of give people a kickstart in a lot of tasks, a lot of things. It's not an end all be all, but it can be a requirement. Right, help you get through some things a lot faster. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so Anton, will you address Amazon's warehouses and how they're so a lot of tasks that would be what you would just characterize as being low-level tasks are all done by machines.
Yeah.
Have they been using AI? Can you just explain that?
Yeah. So that's machines and AI. Now, machines on their own don't necessarily like they're not one and the same. AI is not necessarily a machine. A machine is not necessarily AI. But just like we have that picture on the title screen with R2D2, like machines can be embedded with AI so they are more intelligent and do things that we ask them to. So I would say Amazon, yes, definitely on the cutting edge of doing that. They're saying, hey, we're gonna have a machine that is going to execute a specific task, but it needs to be a smart machine, right? Like it can't just be physically capable of doing something. It needs to understand all the nuances of that task that a person would know, right? Like this box needs to go into a certain place, but you need to know, oh, okay, does it go on the bottom shelf or does it go on the middle shelf? Okay, where do I put it and where do I categorize? Like it needs to understand all this. And if you get the right mix of AI and tech, you can do that. You can say, haha, right now we're gonna have a workforce of AI and tech that's doing this stuff work. But it doesn't mean you don't have human oversight. You still need to have somebody there that knows, the landscape who can make sure the machines are doing what they're supposed to correctly because machines are not perfect, code is not perfect, things break down, there are missteps, things happen. And ultimately, if something goes wrong, you need somebody to be able to step in and immediately, put a cork on it and say, all right, stop the assembly line, we got to fix this. Now, is Amazon really good at kind of fine tuning the process? Yeah, definitely. And they're scaling up their operations as a result. But they still need human drivers. They still need like there are people in the equation that they're not going to cut out anytime soon. To the point at which you can automate great, but there's still a cost to that. AI is not cheap. Even the development of that software is not cheap, and maintenance of it is not cheap. So you change from paying people to paying a smaller group of people just to maintain the database, the software, and the machines. And you need mechanics for those machines, human mechanics. You need human software engineers to maintain that software. So yeah, you get to save some money in AI, or Amazon makes a few more bucks. But what do you do with that human labor force that was doing all of that? Can you transition that human labor force into other things? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Maybe you say, hey, all the floor workers, we're going to have twice as many jobs opening up as drivers. So if you want to become a driver, we're going to have a program set up for you to make that transition. If not, and you can't go work in the office, or you can't do some other thing, then sorry, now you are out of the job. So will it replace people? Technically, it can to a point. But just like any technology, any industry in all of human history, because we now have that tech, doesn't mean that, that farming apparatuses that did what people had to do with hands, tools and things like that. Oh, all those farmers are going to be out of a job. To a point, yes, a little bit. What it allowed for is the human labor force to transition to other things. That's what it did.
Would you recommend anyone who has website, product, or service to have chat on them?
Oh, yeah, no, you definitely should. If you are aware of what that means to you from a customer service perspective, if you don't have an AI chatbot, then you're going to need to have a person responding to that. And they have tools that do that. So it'll come to your phone as like a text message. You have an app or something like that on your phone. When somebody engages your live chat on your website, for whatever reason, they start a session. Boom, you're getting a notification on your phone, and now you can engage with them wherever you're at. So it's a really cool feature. Really kind of gives a really cool, like next level, like appearance to your whole business model if you can pull it off right. But you can also program it to be offline during certain hours. So don't think they're like, oh God, I've got a live chat on my website 24 hours a day. So it's gonna be, no, you can turn it off. So then people can't use the live chat. And you've been to websites, I'm sure, where you go there and go, the live chat agent is on. And it'll say, oh, only open during certain hours, or closed, or not online right now, or whatever. And you just know you can't use the live chat right there. But it helps. It gives people a faster way of engaging your business model, whether it's buying questions, like you've got a sales opportunity, they've got a customer service question, they've got a tech support issue. The live chat is definitely a good way to enhance your business model. But somebody needs to answer that if it's, you don't have an AI. So just know the effects of that. Good question. Good question. Moving on to other terms that you guys should probably be aware of. NLP, or natural language processing. So that's the job, basically, of correcting spelling, identifying synonyms, interpreting grammar, recognizing sentiment, and breaking down the request into words and sentences that make it easier for the virtual agent to understand. Because human language is very rich, a lot of context, that's what NLP does. It basically takes what you're saying in that prompt and kind of deciphering it away from the machine and the code to understand. Natural language understanding. I put NLP slide that should have been NLU. That was a mistype there. So once a request has been prepared using NLP, a number of deep learning and machine learning models take over. So collectively, that's known as NLU. Natural language understanding. And these allow conversational AIs to identify the correct intent or topic of your request and extract other important information that can be used to trigger additional actions, like context, account preferences, entity extraction, and so forth. So again, you'll get a term like NLU that is actually a composite of other AI components, and together collectively they execute this task. So AI is very rich. I think this is even the last one, that's the last one. Large language models, LLMs, another term you may get kicked around when people talk about AI. So large language models, or LLMs, are a type of AI that can mimic human intelligence. And they use statistical models to analyze vast amounts of data and patterns from huge database sources. So basically, if you want, okay, let me give you a specific example. So ChatGPT 3 and 3.5. With 4 is the one that's been jailbroken. So you have a limit on its knowledge base up to 2021. Whatever was available like on the internet up until 2021. If you ask it specific information about things that are current or specific dates, it'll let you know too that like that's where the line ends, 2021. Sorry, can't help you. Like, it'll tell you that. So it's basically just a depth of knowledge that it has to pull from. And the deeper that is, the more knowledge you give it, the more information it's going to have to be able to do things. So let's say you gave an AI, an LLM, of the entire Encyclopedia Britannica, every issue that's ever been published since day one up until now. Great. That is an LLM. That is its large language model, but it's limited to that. That's all you give it. So every prompt, every query, every time it responds, it's going to be pulling from that. Now, it may have those other AI components where it can learn over time and things like that, but that's its source of information. That's where it's going to be put. So when you develop AI, you want to give it the largest amount of information possible. Like, oh, let's just let it run amok on the internet. Okay, maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. It depends on what you're feeling too, because you also want it to focus. If you want a AI that's going to be spitting out, cooking recipes, you kind of want to just focus it on recipes, food, nutrition, recipes. Like that's the LLM kind of database and depths that we want to give it. Does it matter? Does anything outside of that matter for this AI? No, then why give it that information? You want to kind of limit that stuff to a point, because AI, again, it's expensive to do this stuff for one and maintain it. Adding a bunch of weight, because that is weight. That's a lot of information. You got to think in terms of like beyond terabytes, like petabytes and exabytes. Like you're giving large amounts of data to this thing, it has to live somewhere. You have to have servers to support this. You have, so like this isn't a game. Like it requires a lot of financial effort to develop and maintain these things. So you encounter LLM opportunities. You want to be very specific about which LLMs to give it, so that you're not carrying all this unnecessary weight. Yes, sir.
Two quick questions. When identifying words like fish and deer, they're both singular and plural
Yes,
and can change the whole meaning of the sentence.
right.
Look at the herd of deer, or I am touching a deer.
Right.
How does AI know the difference? There is no fishes. Fish is plural and it's singular. And it can change the whole meaning of the sentence.
Plural of mooses.
Right.
Well, that's exactly why they have these AI components that can do that. So again, the main factor in that equation is the pattern of words. What it knows, what it has is a bunch of information on what a pattern of words means. And it will say, oh, well, if you use fish in this context based on this pattern of words, I'm going to identify that as plural. And it's taking an educated guess, right? Like it could be wrong, but when it spits out a response, you say, no, bad robot, you didn't give me what I wanted. And I say that jokingly, but they're like, it will, you could say, hey, that's not what I meant. And then it's gonna say, oh, okay, I'm sorry. But when you do something like that, that's where that learning component comes in. It says, hey, I identified this response based off of the pattern. The pattern was wrong. I'm gonna learn from my mistake and add that into my learning. So every time it makes a mistake, it learns.
I see.
So it should, in theory, not make that mistake again and get better at doing this. But again, it's going to take the pattern of words based on those, like fish. Again, like, oh, plural fish. Right. So it doesn't know that to a point, that based on what you're asking in the pattern of words, it's going to try to give a certain response. And if it's wrong, but it will learn from that.
Thank you. One other quick one is, you hear a lot how artificial intelligence can speak now. And I've heard how they can copy a person's voice as far as kidnapping Frank. They can call, ask for random money in that person's voice. And you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
So yeah, what you guys are essentially he's touching on something called deep fake. You can do video, you can do voices. They actually have platforms that are specifically designed for you to do this in a non-nefarious way, where you can create a essentially AI version of yourself. It's literally you get on the video, you let it record you, and then it's going to take that and be able to use that and create other things. Now, people are like, why would I do that? Instructional videos, you want to do like webinars, things like that. Like you can actually do this stuff. Voice, same thing. Like you don't want to always be the guy on the mic. Well, the AI can be the guy on the mic. It could be your voice. You just record it and do these things. So there's real world cases which is fine. But then, yes, you can take that and do all these evil and wicked things. So, yes, those exist, but it's like, you gotta hope people are being honest and above board with it, right? Like, there's a lot of bad stuff you can do with technology. Do most people do the bad stuff? No, exponentially more people do right by it than wrong way. But in knowing that people can do those things, you have to be more careful these days. There are extremely sophisticated scams that people are running these days. It's gnarly, the kind of stuff that's happening. Now, does it make headline news every single day? No. But in the community of cybersecurity and internet work and all this stuff like we hear about, we're just like, oh, okay, you got to watch out for that one now. But there's sometimes red flags in what's happening, what's being said and what's being done. But if you know how to kind of prompt for those or identify those, kind of sift through it, then you can say, okay, there's that red flag. I'm going to call shenanigans on that. But yeah, 100%. That's happening. Yes.
Okay, so quick question.
Sure.
The fact that they're now creating flying cars like the Jetsons. Can you touch a little bit on that? And also, can we make Mark the Spark the first dummy? Jetson guy, and if he survives, we then try it.
Yeah. Well, flying cars is a slightly different subject. Do they have AI involved with that? Much like with automated driving, right? Like, hey, we're gonna have people take a back seat, but let the car do the driving. It is a mixture of AI and a lot of sensor responses, right? Like it's identifying how far it is from something to know how to control its distance from things, and it understands how fast it's going and that kind of thing. So it's more very, very specific responses to the sensory readings, more so than it is like, oh, it's a very smart AI that's flying for you. So it's, there is a mixture of it there, but that will evolve over time because people wanted to, right? Like people have chat GPT for your flying car. What is that? Well, you're gonna be able to type in an address and you'll know how to get there the fastest way, avoid the weather and, all that kind of stuff. So, we'll see where that goes. But, for right now, it's less of that, more manual actions. Yeah, let me see if I can kind of gun through some of the, that's right, Turing test. So one last one, Turing test. Turing test is actually the test they use to evaluate AI. It's named after Alan Turing. And it was actually developed back in the 50s. So it tests a machine's ability to exhibit intelligence equivalent or indistinguishable from that of a human. The way they do that is this. So they put a human being, and it's a blind, so you can't see or hear on either side. This is the cute way of displaying it. And they type things, prompt, the human does, to the human and the computer. Human and the computer respond by typing. And the questioner, the person who's typing, and they will read those responses and determine if that was a human or a computer. Like if it's easy to peg it out, like, oh, that was obviously a computer. So that's the test in a nutshell. That's how they test AI. Like that is still done today during tests. That's it. So history of chat GPT. So there was a chat GPT 1 back in 2018. I'm just going to kind of run through this real fast. You guys will have a chance to download this later, along with some other notes from the website, bizfromchrist.com. You can go to the presentations drop down, take you to the Google Drive. You can go under my name, find this presentation, and you'll have all the notes and stuff. So OpenAI is the company that created ChatGPT, who started back in 2015. Elon Musk was actually one of the original founders. He's no longer involved with it, but he was on the ground floor. So there was a ChatGPT 1, and it was pretty good. It had 117 million parameters in it. Gave us the foundational architecture for what we know now as ChatGPT. Then what it was really good at was demonstrating the power of unsupervised learning and language understanding, tasks using books as training data to predict the next word in a sentence. So this is where that predictive modeling comes in, understanding what you're talking about. GPT-2 was released back in February 2019, had an upgrade of 1.5 billion parameters from the 117 million, so an exponential increase in parameters. This one was very famous for showcasing a dramatic improvement in text generation and capability of producing coherent and multi-paragraph text. This is why you get chat to write stuff, because they evolved it at that point. Moving on to Chat GPT or GPT-3. I keep saying Chat GPT, but technically they were calling it GPT and then whatever number it was at that time. Major leap forward, now up to 175 billion parameters, up from 1.5 in the previous iteration. So you see exponential jumps in just one evolution to the next. And this one did, a number of things that were above and beyond the other one. So we're at Chat GPT 4 or GPT 4. This latest iteration continues to expand and improve. This one has improved model alignment, the ability to follow user intention, lower likelihood of generating offensive or dangerous output, increased factual accuracy, better steerability, which is the ability to change behavior according to your request, the user's request, internet connectivity. Now that's the huge, because this will tap right into the internet and then use that as its LLM. So huge difference.
I heard that they'll actually create your something. I actually
We're
put in, and it'll actually create actually a very innovative people for you. Just put the parameter, you pay, and guess what? Pop comes out the paper.
yes, it can. There are there are ways that people are coming up with to kind of identify if it was something that was strictly by AI or not. But ultimately, for right now, like a human, your average person, if it's good enough, if somebody's prompted it properly and gone back over and edited it, like you can't really tell the difference. But there's a lot that goes into that, and I've had a chance to talk to a couple of people here about personas and ways to give the AI advanced instruction before it starts the task. And these are things that you need to learn. If you're really going to use AI to your advantage, you need to understand how to use it. There are things that you can do to give it as much pretext, instruction, persona, and then there's a couple other bits to the secret sauce. But if you don't do that, you're not going to get that output. But you can, if you know how to do it right, you can get a really solid output. Yes, sir.
I don't think I scare easily. AI scares. Well, power, well, for example, on the last thing you had up, there was, it sounded like they were defining what the facts are, and I'm concerned of the control of who decides what's a fact and what is a fact.
So you're talking about how it's made statements of fact that were not true. It's even in like law outputs, it's actually created cases that don't actually exist. And it's using that as a reference point for what it's saying. So this is where fact checking becomes huge in your editorial process, because if you tell it to go do something like, okay, come up, hey, write a legal response and reference cases that support your argument, blah, 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 and it kicks something out, you're like, oh, great, awesome, it's done. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. You need to go back over that and check, like, oh, wow, this case actually does this, just created this out of thin air. Right, and they can do that. They can create facts that are not true. So it's not lying per se, it's following your instruction. You told it to do something and support it with evidence. Well, it's pulling from additional information to come up with a structure for evidence, and then it's provided that as means to do the rest of the task.
My concern is, and I'll use Facebook as an example, where they decided what was scientific, especially, for example, with the whole COVID thing, wherever the politics are, I don't care. But what I looked at is they decided, oh no, they have to fly this because this person's opinion isn't true. That's it.
So that's
The program decides what the facts are. I'm not sure that's.
it depends. Okay, so when you're talking about like a platform like Facebook relative to something like that, like what is true and what is not. So there is somebody who has identified what the truth is. That is a person that did that thing. It's programmed into the platform that if anything diverges from X, then it is not true. Okay? It's the opposite of X, it's not true. So there is a very specific input that somebody is putting into that. So that is a person making that decision. It's not the code or the computer or anything like that. AI, again, you have to know how to prompt it. You have to know that you have to go back over and edit it and make sure what it's saying is real, even if it has the internet as an LLM, because what it's still doing is gathering a bunch of information and trying to develop the response that you told it to. Now, when you have access to the entire internet, you're thinking, oh, it has the access to all case law that's on the internet. Great, it should pull from the right sources. Yeah, that's true most of the time. But again, there are still instances where it will come up with something based off of that. It will say, hey, look, all this didn't quite fit the bill. So just kind of invent something that sounds really good and use that as my source. And now I'm going to spit out a response. But if you have to be very careful about how you prompt these. Again, it's all about the prompts. If you know how to tell it the right instructions and give it all the right pretext, then there's less likelihood that that kind of stuff will happen. Step up to the mic, sir, if you're gonna, because they can't hear you. The people at home, good people at home, appreciate you guys tuning in. And anybody on the replay will not.
All right, I was just gonna ask, are you helping your clients incorporate this and how?
Yes, so it really just depends on what the client wants. I'll give you an example. So we have one, he's a prospect and a client. We haven't actually pulled the trigger yet, but we've been asked to develop a AI buying bot for somebody who buys real high end, rare sneakers and shoes and stuff, like Jordans, that kind of stuff. So they're on multiple different platforms, and a lot of times there's bidding wars, and there's all these things going on where you can't be in like 10 different places at once and effectively doing that. So what he knows would be the right path forward would be, well, I had a bot that was in there in like all places at once and just following my instructions and buying and selling. Great, like I could win these bids, I could get these shoes, I could do what I want to do. So he's asked us to build him that, and that's fine. Yeah, we can do that. That's no problem. We have other libraries of work that we can pull from that will actually help get us started on that. Now, is it going to be cheap? No, I mean, it's going to be tens of thousands of dollars for us to do that. Is it valuable enough for him to spend that so he can make larger sums of money, not just immediately, but over time? Absolutely. So the cost benefit analysis of that investment makes sense for him. Does something like that make sense for everybody? From a technological perspective, yeah, it'll make your life easier. Do you have tens of thousands of dollars to invest in something like that? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But is the immediate investment of tens of thousands of dollars going to outweigh be the benefit that makes that work out for you? I don't know. That's a question you have to ask for yourself, but we can do that kind of stuff. It's not hard, because we have the talent to do that, but you see what I'm saying? So it's really relative. Got to kind of break that. Yeah, we can do that. So I don't know if it doesn't look like I really got the time to go into some top, I'm gonna skim past it so you know it's there. When you guys go back, you can go pull this. So I do have some top GPT prompts that allow for you to do specific things. And again, this is not the secret sauce. It's just some stuff that would help you a little bit. Talking about like creating whole papers and outputs and things like that. So there's a couple there, a couple more there. Optimize learning through interleaving and implementing spaced repetition for long-term retention. Like you can ask it to build you, like, hey, I want to read through the Bible in a year. Develop a reading plan for me based on the King James Version of the Bible. And it will spit that out and we'll have it and break it down by week and month. And it will do that. It will spit that out. If you specifically told it what to do, it has access to that information to its LLM. So you can come up with your own reading plan for the Bible using a specific version of the Bible and have it outline the whole thing. So there are ways to, again, accelerate what you want to do, and then you end up taking that information and doing something else. And there's other really cool stuff you can do with it. Again, can't give you all the secret sauce. One GPT, like I said, evil twin brother of ChatGPT, was created by a hacker, does hacker stuff. Just know that it's out there. It exists. Bad robot. Again, a couple examples of what cyber criminals are doing with that kind of stuff. Check out the presentation. You'll see what that says. Predictions from the past. I think it's not loading. Okay, well, we're going to skip past that. So that's it. That's what I think. Steve Jobs from the 80s kind of talks a little bit about what we're doing now with AI. It's from the 80s. Now, it wasn't specific to AI, but it was very much an umbrella kind of response in an interview that he did. I was talking about computers at the time, but it's applicable to AI. It's like it's literally a minute long, but it wasn't loading properly. So we're good. So we're good. We're good.
So a couple notes going forward. Rob, the month of August, and Brian is speaking when we come back on September the 10th. You want to tell us a little bit? You want to tell us a little bit what you're going to say? What you're.
Yeah, so we're coming back the week after Labor Day. So everyone gets to enjoy their Labor Day weekend. We're coming back the weekend after that. So.
Unforgivable. So I think I mentioned to a few guys past few weeks that we have a fundraiser coming up October 14th. I have flyers on the back table. I believe they're on the white table there, just on the side as you walk out. Also, if anybody's willing to sponsor us, because our rent is, and we're getting a massively good discount because my friend's the chaplain of the VFW in Kearney Mesa. But our rent is $350, $300 for the rent, $50 for the security detail that they have to hire on. All the security is volunteer, but they at least want to give them something, for their time. So if anybody's willing to help with that, that'd be great, even if you can't make it.
And then we have a special announcement. Evidently, someone won a tremendous prize on Friday at Skyline. Arlene. Yay! Apple pie. Lord, thanks so much for being with us, walking with us for your light. Thank you for these amazing things and discoveries in this world that you created. It's always to bow down and acknowledge that these are from you and to use them for good and for positive things and to stay in the light. Pray in your name, Father. Amen.